Hi, I'm Newt, and we're talking for Pastorpedia, which is about to replace Wikipedia as a popular site, and we're talking about community. Community meaning around your church building and around your church people. And the issue is sometimes churches can think overseas and not right there. So today's subject, and I hope in your mind, is thinking about what can we do better for the community. There's whole books that have been written now about if your church were taken out of there, what would be left and what would be the effect. There's the thinking that it's missions like Acts chapter 1. It says Jerusalem, Judea, and then everywhere else. And as I was a kid, everybody said, now Jerusalem is right where you start. And our church kind of remained insulated against the community. Come on, we got to do better. Starting with us, and we want to talk about how we touch lives around us. There are plenty of people who love missions and don't think about the people they pass on the way to church or their next door neighbors. And there are many churches that, great missions budget and how much is local, because it does take money. So be thinking about where you are and why you're there. You got to say God's sovereign for the area in which you live. You are there for a high purpose. Even if there's a church down the street, let's talk community. Let's talk about loving the people who are very close to us and the guests who come into our building. But we're mostly going to talk about local mission. Here we go. Jeff, say something about it as you look at it.
Well, when I think about community, I think of something that I have a strong passion for. I really believe that God gives the church to the local area. We all have a geography, right? And we're there to make sure that the gospel is clear and accessible in the area where God planted us. And one of the things that has changed so dramatically over even in my lifetime is that there is a real sense that we are re-evangelizing our own nation. So when we think about our community, we need to think about the missional opportunities within it. The world is at our doorstep. In every community is an international community. Every community has great need. Every community has unchurched and unreached people. And one of the strongest reasons why our churches are in the communities that they're in is so that we can proclaim the gospel there. I think about when Jesus went out to the towns and villages and he was teaching and he was healing and he was seeing people. And he says, the Bible says he saw them as sheep who were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. And Jesus knew that who he was would provide leadership and guidance and help on every level to those towns and villages. And of course, we, the body of Christ, that's our calling and our drive as well. So I think this is a huge passion. I think it's incredibly energizing to the local church and very much in the very core DNA of what the church is to be. Jim, you guys are so strong with this. Share your heart about it a little bit.
I would go so far as to say that's why I agree with Jeff and Newt, more with Newt than I do Jeff. I would say this about us as pastors and you as a pastor. If you don't lose some sleep, and if I don't lose some sleep over my community, then I really have to check my calling from God, because I believe he's placed us there to become the hope of the world to our community. And I believe that passionately with all my heart. And so I'm a reader of our local newspaper. How can you not know what's happening in your community if you're not reading the local news? And it gives me an opportunity. Maybe there's a business that's failing, or a person that's died, or a friend that needs help, or just the local news. And so I find myself reading that so I can not only know about my church, but also know about the people in the community and pray for them, give them a call, stop by. We've even done some strategic things I'm so passionate about, and our church is so passionate about. We can talk that we are making a difference. Let's see if we really are. On a Sunday morning a few years back, we wanted to see how good a job we were doing in our community reaching them. So we planted a broken down car on the main thoroughway coming to our church with a lady who was distraught with kids. We placed a homeless man on the corner around our church. It had a sign that said, "We'll work for food." We placed someone even in our own church cafe and had them in a distraught way with their hands in their face, sobbing, to see if our people really saw them. If we're going to church, trying to become the church, and we're not seeing the needs around us, then we have a big problem there. And so I really believe that when there's a dire strait happening in someone's life in the community, that they should run to your church to find hope and to find Jesus.
Great thoughts. Jim, I got to ask to start, what did you find out about the church with these plants?
A couple things, Newt. One was the lady that was along the side of the road. Most people drove by her because they were in a rush to get to church. But there were about a 25% group of people who stopped and say, hey, can I help you? The homeless guy on the corner, he had 4 people stop and help him out. The lady in our cafe, a high percentage of people helped. The crazy thing about that, New, was this. We brought them up. We threw up the video on our screen of this car to let people know, hey, did you see this car on the way to church today? And then we brought each one of these people up on stage, and you could have heard an audible sigh in our auditorium. It was a great teachable moment.
Wow. Yeah. Jeff, name some things your church does. Let's be specific about some community touches by the church Grace. Can you name a couple of them?
Yeah, there's a lot of them. A lot of our stuff, first of all, when we think about reaching the community, we always think in very relational terms. So we don't think in, I always say we don't throw teddy bears at poor kids. It's how do you get tied into people's lives and go a distance with them? So a lot of things we would do are things like mentorings in school, working with single disadvantaged mothers, maybe helping them get housing and making sure they have a long-term plan. We do a lot working actually with prostitutes in our community. And so we walk the streets, we connect with them. We have women in our church that take gifts into strip clubs, helping these women know there's people who love them and care about them. We have some success with them, and we have a lot of access to their children. They'll let us mentor and help and care for their children. All of the funeral homes know if they need help, call Grace. We will help anybody, anytime. It's just some real easy, kind of practical ways to get involved with things.
But very intentional. You're very intentional.
Very intentional with it.
Oh, my. I guess so. And how do you find the people to do this? You don't just make a Sunday announcement, either of you.
Actually, I think if you develop that DNA in your church, like if that's the culture, people have asked us that. We have a group called the Blue Crew in the church I attend. That we
T-shirts?
We wear blue shirts that have Grace in Action on them, and we have blitzes that we do monthly. That we go out in the community, we rake leaves. We go to ball games, give out hot dogs. We give out free light bulbs, but we are strategically on mission that people know who we are. And so when it comes to sign up for Blitz, our DNA has become, hey, I want to be part of this because it's changing lives. So we put a list in the foyer, people sign up. It didn't begin that way, but if you breed that culture, and that's the DNA, and you share the excitement of the stories of changed lives, oh man, people jump on board for it. But someone's got to start it.
I agree that it's DNA, and I believe strongly when we started this culture, I needed to lead the way.
Oh, yeah.
So it was come with me, or my wife Heidi also would do this a lot, come with us. Well, then it breeds and it starts to build on itself, and you almost sometimes have trouble providing enough opportunities
I would agree with that.
for people, but you want them to think of that on their own. We also look and say, if you're involved with one of our community partners, think of that as being involved with Grace Church. So it's not an extra thing. This is who we are. This is what we do.
And when you said community partners, what do you mean?
We will go and investigate a parachurch ministry usually, and if they can align with us generally theologically and then philosophically, we go and we come under their leadership. So the key to community involvement is serve, 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 serve. And they are there, they do it 24 hours a day. We have the ability to bring manpower, sometimes money, usually lots of energy and encouragement, but we serve under their leadership, and we would title that a partnership that we have with them.
I think, Jeff, I would say sometimes we lose sight of, we think about parachurch organizations. We jump on board with a bunch like you do also. Sometimes we neglect things like Little League Baseball, PFL football, where you can jump in as a coach, you can jump in as an assistant coach, and you are helping that community, building up a program, a skill set, but at the same time, you have awesome opportunity to introduce Jesus. There are people in my community that still call me coach. And that, in my mind, we don't label that as a parachurch organization, but I'll tell you what, there's a lot of Jesus stuff going on there if you try it.
And talk about that. What's the balance between urging your people to get involved individually in anything like that and the organized ministries of the church? Many churches, that part dominates totally, and they don't know about this. Hey, we want you to do that.
I would say it begins with staff, like freeing your guys up. Hey, go get involved in this. Like, there's plenty you can do that we're connected with here, but go live out your life, the daily stuff with your kids, and we give you permission. Be Jesus where you're at. So I think giving permission to your staff and your leaders around you helps that.
Yeah, we found that we used to really organize everything and try to get people involved. We have really worked hard in the last 2 years to invert that. And we would try to teach our folks, find the need, identify the need, grab your friends from church and go be involved with it. You don't need to report into us, because we want it to be their instinct and their DNA.
On the way here, I'm on the phone with somebody in need, and he's telling me that a woman that he's been trying to help came to your church, Jesus Church, where you pastor, and a woman has volunteered to read the Bible with her once a week.
Awesome.
Which you got to know is to help her really get to know Christ.
Turn the body of Christ loose. We don't need to organize it. We need to lead it a lot of times. When you're teaching, you need to organize it. The further you go in it, you turn folks loose. Don't have them in the building all the time.
I would say this too, Jeff. When people come to me with a need, probably with you in need and Newt with a need, often they want you to do it. Like,
Amen.
Take care of this. Take care of this.
Yeah.
And we turn it back and say, hey, maybe God has called you to do this. How can you help out? So we're forcing it back out.
Pastor, why don't we have a ministry for blank? And why don't you do this, please? Say something about money and time. Many of the people watching may be in a church where so much goes into maintenance of the get ready for Sunday and what we're doing. Everything you've said contradicts that, but encourage them. How do you go a step at a time to change that a little, don't you?
I think it shows up in your budget, Newt. I think you have to budget money to help the local community. It's got to start. It has to start. If it's not there, it doesn't become a priority. It has to begin there.
And that the board or whoever, or the finance committee or someone gets convinced we are headed this way.
I think you should. I would say show them a changed life. If you show, I'll look out at my group on a Sunday morning and I say, hey, because you gave this amount of money, let me tell you the story that was changed. If people can connect a changed life to their giving or to a program, they'll empty their pockets.
Yep. Absolutely. And I coach pastors all the time. I believe strongly churches don't have financial problems, they have vision problems. And you give a vision and you give a passion, your folks get excited about that, money's there. God's your provider. So those resources will show up if you cast that vision and lead that way. The finances will shake out in time.
Indeed. Thank you both. We all three of us wrote papers on this. A lot of specific things, but we wanted to say something so you'll read those papers, and I hope you will. You're with Pastorpedia, Jim Brown, Jeff Bogue, Newt Larson. Thank you.